Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hello my friends and welcome to another December video here on the Book Refuge. Pardon my voice a little bit, I do have just a tiny bit of a cold. I do have some of my medicine ball tea that I make at home here. And I will be taking in copious amounts of it. I also haven't talked too much yet today, so, that's just December everywhere, all right? The winter cold has set in for sure out there. And while it looks like a winter wonderland, it's definitely not fun. But I just got back from a great little trip to Duluth to see Bentleyville. If you live in the Minnesota, North Dakota area, you probably know what that is in Duluth, Minnesota. It was beautiful. But today, as you can tell from the title, we're going to be talking about the books that I didn't like so much in 2025. It's not looking like I'll be reading anything I really dislike for the rest of the year. I know, that's always a risk to take. But most of the books left on my TBR are... there's still a chance, of course, but I have a lot of favorites videos still to do for the rest of the year. And I was like, let's get this one out of the way. So a few things up front. You guys know I always got my qualifiers to say. I've read over 300 books this year. And I did write down a couple little stats. So I've read over 300 books so far this year. I think I'm at over 320. And out of all of those books, I've only DNF'd 5 of them. Okay, I'll come back to the DNFs. I've only given one book 2 stars. I've only given one book 2.5 stars. And I've only given 19 books 3 stars. Okay? Everything else has been 3.5 or above. Now, if I give a book 3.5, it gets rounded up to a 4, which means, it's one that I would recommend in the right situation usually, right? So I'm pretty kind to the books that I read. You guys know that around here. I like to be very positive. If I even get an inkling that I'm not enjoying a book, I usually jump out of it, right? And as you'll see with the ones that I have rated lowly here, it's usually because I'm forced to finish them. And I'm very rarely forced to finish a book because even these books that I rated lowly, I had every hope that I would like something about them at the end. And even these ones I rated 3 stars, I liked something about them. I'm really trying not to force my voice, so I don't want to shout. Hold it back, Jen. The camera can hear you. It's fine. I just don't do that, 32 years old. I've read thousands of books. I know what I like, so I pick books that I like. And the books I don't get to pick, because you guys know, I do read as a job. I have patrons who pick books for me. I have an author that I read books for. I love to ARC read. That's something I don't get paid to do, but I love doing it. So there are books that I come across that just don't work for me. Now, when I'm ARC reading a book that I don't like, I usually get out of it very quickly. Or I'm usually very generous to that book. And those are the books that usually get rounded up to a 4 because I just am that way. Some people will call that being a sellout or being too easy on it. That's just how I am. I've been that way the whole time. And people who don't like that about me have probably long since moved along because if you think that about me, it means you don't trust my opinion. And then what are we doing here? There's no point in that, right? So anywho, the point being for that, I only have 5 books that I've officially labeled as a DNF. And that means that I've read a significant amount of the book. Because otherwise I DNF and I don't even label it as a DNF, right? And maybe I DNF'd it just because I was not vibing it. And I do that quite often because again, I don't force myself to read something. And in that case, I don't feel like labeling it as a DNF because it wasn't anything the book did to offend me or to get on my nerves. I just wasn't working for me. And so I just DNF it and scrap it from my list and move along. But some books, I'll have invested enough time into them that I'm going to list them as a DNF and I'm going to bitch about them a little bit, right? So yeah, couple other caveats before we go. Again, in general, I like to talk very positively about books. I will talk about the things that irritate me because I also am an honest reviewer. But in that honesty, I don't always feel the need to be like cruel or mean about stuff. That isn't what the Book Refuge is about. This is a place to be happy and joyful. And even when we pick things apart, and by we, I mean my, they're my opinions. I don't like to be mean-spirited. It could feel that way sometimes if it's your favorite, or even if, God forbid, you're the author of one of these books, it could feel that way. And Lord knows if someone sent you this and you're the author, please don't watch this. Like, it's not for you. This is a reviewer space. You know, I would never want to hurt you by sharing my thoughts because that's just what I do here. But I also know that sometimes sharing the things that you hate about a book absolutely convinces someone to read it. So I'm still going to list the links for all the books I talk about down below if you want to go and purchase them. Because sometimes, I mean, especially a couple of the DNFs, I know that the reason I DNF'd them, some of you will want to read it, right? So anyway, those are the things I always got to mention for this video, is that some of these I will be what will feel mean to, because they're the things that I didn't like. And this is the video each year that I really give myself the freedom to go ape shit on them and just say what I hate about it, because, you know, in a very good portion of my videos throughout the year, I will dance around those things or try to be kind. Again, it doesn't mean that I lie about anything. I definitely don't. But I don't go out of my way to nitpick things to death because I'd rather talk about the books that I love. Again, out of 300, I have a total of, you know, I'm not talking about, well, that's the next phase of thing I have to talk about. But out of all the books that I read this year, over 300, I have less than 30 that I would consider ones I don't like. So I have plenty enough to talk about that I do like than to dwell on things I don't. So anywho, that's your warning for that. And you are able to right now go in the description and see the names of the books I'm going to talk about, so that if you don't want to hear my negative thoughts on these, it's a book that's a favorite of yours. Let me be clear about this. It's perhaps a book you recommended to me, because there are a couple of those in here. There are a couple of these that were Patreon reads that I'm now finally going to give my full thoughts on here, because it's been a long time since the, review of it. And I'm going to tell the specific reasons that I hated it and what in some cases icked me out. And as a reminder, there's no kink shaming here. Just because a kink or a sexual scenario in a book gave me the personal ick, that does not mean it is icky in general or shouldn't exist in a book. It means that Jenn's personal taste is no thank you, please get it away from me. And we are all allowed to have those feelings. So this is your warning for that. If you get offended by that, I'm sorry, you've been warned. I'm going to be honest here on the channel. So we're almost 10 minutes in. Let's now get into my final caveat. So as I said, there was 19 that I gave 3 stars to. There was 1 that I gave 2.5 stars to, 1 that I gave 2 stars to, and 5 that I DNF'd. In this video today, we're not going to talk about all of those. What I will be talking about, though, is all of the DNFs. I'm going to talk about all 5 of those because there was varying degrees of why I didn't talk about those. I'll talk about the 2-star and the 2.5-star because those are obviously, for me to give a book below 3 stars, I really strongly dislike it. And then I picked 5 of the 3 stars to talk about. So that's what I mean. It's like there's 5 DNFs, 5 3 stars, and then the 2 and the 2.5 stars. So we're going to talk about 12 books. Some of them I have more to say than others about them. And I do have my laptop up. I remembered to grab my laptop stand today because I'm wearing slippery leggings and my computer keeps sliding into my camera, which is annoying. So anywho, 10 minutes in and already drinking lots of my tea. We're going to get into these books and I'm going to be the extra sassy version of Jenn. I think I need to reapply my lip gloss since I'm drinking tea. And you've been warned. And I still love all of you. And if you recommended this book to me and I hated it, that is not a reflection on you. And please don't leave me comments that say that you're hurt and you're so sorry and you're apologizing that you suggested it. Please don't do that. There's no need. There's no need. Because if I finished it, I've just explained, I'm a big ass girl. I could have DNF'd it. Even if it's a book for Patreon or if it's a book that someone paid me to read. I am never forced to finish anything. I will stop it if I have to. And two, if you are like mad at me because I don't like it, well, then we really don't have time to do it. So nobody apologize that I finished a book and nobody be upset about it. So just don't watch a book where the whole video is going to be negative talk about the book. So just, anyway, I've said enough. Here we go. Let's start with the DNFs, okay? And the first couple ones I have to talk about, I didn't read very much of them, so I don't have a ton to say about them because the first DNF of the year that I had was this one called, sorry, I got a hair on here, was this one called Ravenous by Alana Rachel Parker. And this was a new to me author that I tried. And I can tell you, I barely remember this one. This one was way back in February, excuse me. And it was the very first, review of the year, or DNF of the year. And this was a fantasy romance that involved a like wolf shifter, or how is it? Okay, see, I barely remember this, so we got to look it up a little bit here. But I do remember why I DNF'd it, but let me explain just a little bit. This was Rika Nikora, who is wolf blessed. So she's a human who possesses the instincts and capabilities of a wolf, and once a devoted follower of the very gods who blessed her. She's now a criminal on the run. She can't remember committing the crime, and she's willing to do anything. And then there was Rydian Cognac, who is the leader of the resistance, and his only goal is to free his people. And I believe he's supposed to like trade her, like for his people or something like that. And then I think they're maybe supposed to be like fated mates or something like that. But this was a ridiculously long book it was so slow. The pacing was just so slow. And, oh yeah, that's right. This is one where like, she's on the run, but like they almost hook up, but then he finds out she's the one that he's supposed to trade. I don't know. See, I can't even remember. It was not 10 months ago that I read it. I couldn't make it through it. So this is one of the ones I'm ambivalent about. So yeah, there we go. That's my answer on that one. See, you're starting with a fizzle anyway. I don't have anything awful to say about that one, but I know that it'd sound exciting for it. Like it had sounded exciting to me, and it just didn't go anywhere. So whatever, we're moving along with that one. Okay, the next DNF I had, though, was one that I was very disappointed in because I was anticipating it a lot. And that was Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. And I know I wasn't the only one disappointed in this one, because this one was highly anticipated by a lot of people. So this one was book 2 in Into the Darkness. Now, the thing is, though, I didn't read super far into it, so I don't have horrible things to say, but I just got really icky vibes off of the characters, and it also was like, it just had such an odd setup. Here, let's read what I wrote. I only read about 10% in, and I said, I just don't think this one is going to be for me. I really wanted to get into it, but there's just too many little things that keep throwing me out. I'll try again with another one. I love this author, so I'm here for the long haul, even if this one isn't my bag of tricks. So I think part of it for this one is that the heroine was just like very judgy of everything, which was odd because she herself was a like sex worker. She's a cam girl, and she works in she goes to a kink club, and she's just very, like, upset that, I think one aspect is, like, her sister didn't want her around her niece because she's a sex worker, and that somehow made her sister a really bad person. She didn't want her around her as a sex worker. And I know that this is, like, that was, like, a tough thing for me, because I understand that we can try to make that seem like a very progressive job and like it'd be okay. But to say that a single mom who's trying to look out for her child wouldn't necessarily want her daughter to be around her sister who's involved in sex work is a bad sister for that. I think you're trying to push a belief that I don't agree with. And it was just a weird move to make. Also, it was like Nick was also just kind of a limp noodle to me. Like, he didn't have a super powerful position in, like, this mafia too. So he felt like a bit of a lackey to start. And I don't know. And then, and this is just a personal, like, feeling for me. I really enjoyed just how wild Lights Out was and crazy. And it was just, it worked for so many people. There was no crazy, I'm going to say the word, I'm sorry guys, there was no crazy agenda trying to be pushed with it. It was just bonkers. It was a stalker romance. They were both as fierce as each other. The heroine took no shit, but she loved the games the hero wanted to play. And, like, I was here for it. I laughed while reading that one. And this one, it just immediately came in with these heavy themes and, like, the agenda being pushed, and it immediately threw me out of it then. And like I said, I DNF'd it at 10% because I was like, you know, maybe this will go somewhere else with it. But I was just expecting it to be funny and chemistry filled like the first one. And it just came in with all this baggage and, like, all this work that Nevessa Allen was trying to do. And I've said this 100 times. This is my personal feelings. An author can do whatever type of work or have any type of mission or story that they want to tell. It is their work. I would never critique or criticize them wanting to do that. But me as a reader, when I'm reading for pleasure, and I'm specifically reading romance, which again, it can be political and agenda driven. I would never take that away from anyone, that's what they want to do. But I don't have to like it, and I don't have to consume it and say that it was what I was looking for when it's not. If there comes a point where that is the type of story I'm wanting to read, which there has been those points in my life, then that's the story that I want. And again, there have been points where I've wanted to read that. And there's a few authors, as an example, that they've told that type of story when it's the type of story that I wanted to read. But there is also such a thing as subtlety, where you get told that type of message and it gets woven in. It isn't straight up the author is trying to, like, I believe in this one, she's trying to, like, I don't know, levy a congresswoman or something into, I think there's, like, a fundraising thing happening in it, like, for a certain sex worker rights, like, right in the beginning of the book. I think, I could be totally wrong. It's been a very long time since I DNF'd this book. So, yeah. So it's like, there are ways to weave that in there where the person can enjoy the story and then also be like, wow, this was saying something really important. It's one of the reasons why I like certain historical romances who do that, right? And, okay. The next DNF I had, and this is the one that I think a lot of people will actually, well, not a lot, but at the time and the place I was reading it, I was like, I'm not in this mood. I really got to be in a specific mood for this type of dark romance, okay? So this other DNF was The King of Hearts by Alex Grayson, okay? So Alex Grayson was a new to me author last year with a book called The Wild Man, which was a Tarzan reimagining. And that book was very dark. It involved, like, a lot of forced stuff, okay? It was. But it was a Tarzan reimagining. And so the woman being taken and bred and forced into things, it really like worked for the scenario for me. And it had that type of fantasy baked in where being held against your will and forced into things, you didn't fully blame the hero for it happening. And again, it was a dark romance anyway. So, I mean, I'm not saying he was off the hook for anything, but also he'd literally been raised by wolves and he was keeping his mate for himself, right? So the King of Hearts was an extremely dark romance. And in this one, we have an extremely manipulative hero who has been drugging and fucking the heroine in her sleep and breeding her against her will in her sleep, to the point that he's gotten her pregnant before he lets her know that he's forcing her into a marriage. He's forcing her family to let him marry her. And his trump card is that she's pregnant already with his heir. And whoa, that's a whole other level of manipulative, right? So like I said, that is going to be somebody's kink. Absolutely. And again, no judgment. The people that this one's going to work for, it's going to do everything you want it to do. And Alex Grayson has an entire page of trigger warnings for this. Okay, there's an entire list of them. If you love somnophilia, if you like, the helplessness of dreams, if you like forced marriage and all those things, like Alex Grayson may be the author for you, and this book may be for you. It was too much of all the things for me. And on top of that, he was also very, mean. He was also the, if you look at the girl, I'll kill you. As in, she's your, the bodyguard can't even look at you or I'll kill you. And I'm like, but how is he her bodyguard then if he's not allowed to be around her and protect her? That literal kind of, irrational, he is trying to gaslight her and make her solely dependent on him and all those things, right? And again, there has been a time and a place in my life where I want it that extreme. And there may be, again, that time and place where I want it that extreme. This just wasn't it. But again, the author warned you of all that. And because I liked The Wild Man, I thought I would like this too. And this one, I gave it a significant amount of time too. I gave it about almost 50%. And then I was like, I can't, because it just wasn't working. And because the author fully warned me, I was like, I'm going to end up giving this book 2 or 3 stars. And this is where I use my brain, where I'm like, but the author warned me exactly what was in this book. And the writing is good. And the story is being told in a compelling way. So if the only reason I'm not liking it are the reasons that the author warned me about, then it's time for me to leave. And that's just something I've picked up as a reader of dark romance over the years. And I wish more people which again, it's their own reading experience. We can't wag our fingers at people who read how they want to read. But I wish more people who first dived into dark romance were kind of warned about that. You don't have to push through a book that is torturing you. You can leave at any time. And so I did. And so I DNF'd this one. But again, it's one that I still have recommended multiple times since I DNF'd it. And I know some of you have loved it because it's what you need when you need it, right? And I totally get that because I've needed it at times too. So, okay. Then another DNF. And this one made me sad that I DNF'd it because I DNF'd it at 67% and I was enjoying myself. So this is one I have a bit more of a rant to go on. And this one is In Death, Love Survives by Angel Anders. So this is an author that I have enjoyed. She's a solid 4-star author for me. So it's not like she's my favoriteest favorite, but this was kind of a darker romance she was taking on. It was a prison romance, and our heroine is a prison psychologist. And I found it very interesting because she falls for Wolf Walker, who is transferred to her prison, and she's in danger of falling in love with him. And she ends up, like, how did this work too? I'm trying to remember. But anyway, either way, they fall in love while they're in prison and while he's in prison. But what was weird about it is this isn't one where they like escape together, I don't think. I gotta check this here. But I thought the beginning of it was great. I liked how they were falling for one another in their sessions together. And then when he is like getting out, because this wasn't one like where he was escaping, that he gets out, and when he gets out, she quits her job and like leaves with him. And so his last day in prison, she leaves with him. And I don't know. It makes no sense. And this was at the 67%. And then it makes no sense from there. Like, truly, it's so hard to talk about. Like, this is what I wrote. I DNF'd at 67%. This started out so cool. But what the fuck just happened? Did he fuck your brains and common sense right out of your head? That is what I wrote. And, like, it is an insta love story, but it feels like very surface level. And the second time they meet in person is when she will she finger fucks herself while he watches her. Like, what? Like, they've only talked once, and the next time they're alone, she gets up on her desk and like fingers herself so he can watch. Like, it just didn't make sense why we had to go that fast. Like, I was okay with them falling so instantly. Like, you know, they could have fallen quickly. But it didn't make sense because she also has a past with like criminals, and she's now become a criminal like psychologist, and she's working in a prison, which doesn't fully make sense that they would let her work in a prison when she has a history with that. And then so quickly she's getting sexual with him. To me, what would have made more sense is if they had been if they were emotionally into each other so much. And I think it would have been hotter and sexier if they really didn't touch until they leave together, you know. But I just don't think that this author, she is a young author, okay, in the author sense. Like, I know she's written like 4 books, but that's not a ton. And they've all been heavy spice books. And if you're gonna base it in prison where there's that forbidden level, I think they shouldn't have touched until they got out. And that would have put an urgency on them getting out of the prison as soon as they could. And then when she leaves with him and they're able to touch for the first time, it makes sense. But by having them be physical so soon, and then her willing to just go, it just didn't work for me. Like, she seems so good at her job with all other inmates. But then with him, she just goes off her rocker. And then she's willing to just literally follow this guy anywhere. And she loses her brain. And I just don't understand what happened with this. And so at 67%, when she leaves with him, and this woman who is a psychologist, she's a doctor, is that stupid. I felt insulted as a woman with brains in her head, and I was like, no. And so I ditched. I was like, we're leaving this narrative immediately. And so that was disappointing to me because it had such a good premise, and the promise of it was so good. And then what are you doing? So that was that DNF. And then I didn't have another DNF until just this last month. The end of November, I had one more DNF. And with this one, I don't have as harsh of reasons. It's really that I was pretty bored, which I hate to say that because I love this author. But I DNF'd Walking in Darkness by A.L. Jackson. And this was the second half of her Darkness duet. And this is her kind of like new adult, like YA new adult. It's new adult because there is a bit darker content, but it involves like this unseen shadow world of demons, and there are these people that are able to fight off the evil, but it appears that like the evil is bleeding into the real world. Well, it's always been able to affect the real world, but Arya and Pax are this fated pair, and they're fighting against it together and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into the whole thing with this one, honestly, because I enjoyed the first half of this. The audiobooks are really good. They're forbidden. They're a pair that's only supposed to work together, because like when they go to sleep is when they awaken this spirit world, and they're only supposed to work together in the spirit world. They're not supposed to meet in the real world, and they end up doing that. And they've been told that if you meet in the real world, really bad things will happen, this, that, and the other thing. And then they do, though, and they realize that actually meeting in real life, they're more powerful than ever. So maybe they've actually been lied to. But who would be lying to them, and why? So I enjoyed the first half, Visions of Darkness, and the cliffhanger was good. And Walking in Darkness, I just got to about the midway point, and I should have been loving it because we were figuring stuff out, but I just lost steam. And I realized that I didn't really care how they were doing this. And that's a bad sign. When you don't care how it's happening, it's time to leave. And so I did. And I don't have any horrible things to say, but it wasn't going to be a life-changing duet for me. The best thing that I can say is A.L. Jackson normally writes kind of like romantic suspense, and she writes in a very purple prose and like fantasy way. And I feel that her writing style very much transfers over to fantasy very well. And I would love to see if she wrote some more like classic fantasy than this, because this was urban fantasy and it still was kind of like a midway point. And I would like to see if she straight up wrote us some like dragon fantasy, like what it could be, or like fae or something like that. So yeah. So anyway, moving along, let's get to the 2-star read. All right. So this one was extremely difficult for me, you guys. All right. And this is one that look away if you're the person who suggested this book. Okay. Because this one was a suggested one. This was one because I had to finish this. Okay. Both the 2 and the 2.5-star book were ones I had to finish, or I would have DNF'd them. Absolutely right. Because again, I don't push through books that I'm not loving. But this was one that someone paid for. It was an annotated book, and it was one of my custom requests. And with custom requests, you guys know, or maybe you don't, but like about quarterly, I do a annotated request form. Where people can request annotated books, and I do them as like tax fundraisers. Like really, I do fundraisers for my taxes, because that's a lot when you have a small business. If you have a small business, you know. I mean, if you don't have a small business, you probably know. What was that? Jeez. But anyway, so Viper by Genevieve Evans. I never heard of this author before, and it said that it was a MC romance, and also that it was a MMF romance, possibly. And I was like, cool, so let's go. And to me, this was an absolute train wreck of a story. And a lot of that came in what the setup of this story was. So this was about Cole Davis, who goes by Viper, so there's our name, and he's the VP of the Satan's MC at the start of this story. And this is a story of how he came to have 2 women, and how Mia became his second, like, wife, basically. Or how Mia became his old lady, and then how her best friend Jeannie came in as well. And the story is told over a 20-year period. And my, like, biggest issues with this, there's so many issues with this, is I love MMF, all right? But there was and I was cool with it if it was an MMF, right? It starts out with just Mia and Cole, though, Mia and Viper. And Jeannie is being abused by Devil. And at one point in the story, like, I'm not going to go through this whole thing because I really dislike the story. I'm trying to tell you why I disliked it, though. And the only way to kind of, like, save her is for Viper to claim Jeannie as well. And this is actually Mia's idea. And Viper, at first, he's so resistant. He's like, I can't have two old ladies. And she's like, but it's the only way to save her. And he's like, well, I don't want to get in between our relationship. And she's like, it won't. It's totally fine. And so they bring her into the relationship too. And the thing is, Mia actually does love Jeannie too. So Mia loves Jeannie and Mia loves Viper. And so everything's fine. And sometimes when Viper is away on trips, Mia and Jeannie will call him while they are, like, fucking each other so he can listen. And I think they'll even use toys on each other and he can listen. And he'll get off in the bathroom while they're in the most unsexy manner you've ever heard, by the way. Like, this author doesn't know how to write sex scenes to save their life, okay? It's bad. And at one point in the story, and this is where, like, because up to this point, it just, the problem was just, like, the writing was pretty bad to me, which I very rarely is a problem to me. You guys know, if you've been around, I don't usually complain about, like, bad writing. That's not really Jenn's issue with anything, but I was struggling with it. But then a point in the story is they're kind of reflecting on their life together, and Mia, I believe, is saying how much she loved Jeannie, and Jeannie's saying, well, I mean, I'm not in love with you. I don't like, she's saying, like, I mean, I'm with you because it, like, saved me, and, like, I love you as a friend. Meanwhile, Mia's confessing that she's deeply in love with both Jeannie and Viper, and Mia opened her marriage, basically, to Jeannie to save her from an abusive relationship, brought her in, shared her husband, and she doesn't love her. And she tells her that. And, like, you could say it's supposed to be, like, this honest thing. But, like, Mia makes sure that Jeannie and Viper get time to work on their relationship. And make sure that it's strong. And Jeannie to just say, like, oh, well, I mean, I don't mind, like, touching and kissing you. But, like, I only do that to, like, make sure you guys never got rid of me. And, like, I don't know. And it's that thing, too, of, like, if that was the case, she didn't have to stay there all that time, because Devil's not a problem forever. He's only a problem for a little while. And yet you stayed there, making Mia think you also loved her, using her good graces to stay with both her and Viper, be a part of their family, raise your kids together. Fuck her, make her think you love her too, when you didn't. And it just felt so icky. And from that point on in the book, I was just really grossed out. And then on top of how badly written it was, and on top of, like, Viper just being absolutely clueless to all of it, and on top of, like, this whole, like, universe didn't make sense. So this was a rough one, and I felt really bad annotating this one, but that's the risk. I always say that when people pick one for me that I've never read it before, and they pay me to annotate it, once they've paid me and I'm annotating it, like, I don't, like, stop because I don't like it and refund it. You know what I mean? Like, it's already, the taxes have already been paid, right? So I felt so bad, and I'm trying not to be a dick, but I'm an honest person. So, I felt bad, but you don't know till you try. So anyway, that was my 2-star read this year. All right. And then my 3.5-star read, or 2.5-star read was Runaway Whirlwind. And this one was a Patreon pick. Okay. And I know, so this one I have a detailed review on my Patreon. I read this one for June. And we read this one for, what was our theme for this one? Was it age gap? What was our theme for that? I don't even remember what our theme was for that one. If it was age gap or if it was it surprise pregnancy or something? I don't remember. Maybe one of you guys do. But this one just felt, this was the one, you guys. Okay, and I know that this is the one that it was hard to like talk about it, but this is the one that felt kind of icky to me. And I know this is where I'm saying this is a personal feeling for me about how the kink in this one played out. It just wasn't like working for me. And I should have probably DNF'd this one, but it wasn't super long. And it wasn't until I like finished it and was like reflecting on it as a whole that I started feeling that way. But it really was like written as one of those like porn where it's like, oopsie, he's inside me now. Oopsie, I came inside her and didn't mean to. Oopsie, I just jizzed all over her face and she's sleeping. Oopsie, gotta wipe it off. Like, and I was like, what is happening? And then it happens over and over and over again. It was so strange. So anyway, in this one, we have this girl who's like just turned 18 and she's on the run. Her father has been keeping her captive and she goes on the run. And so she makes it to the closest truck stop and she gets in with this guy. And she basically like offers to sleep with this guy. And he is like, no, I don't want to do that. But he allows her to stay with her. But then when she's sleeping with him, or I mean, not sleeping with him, she's like staying there. She ends up like rubbing up on him in the middle of the night. And oopsie, he ends up like coming all over her in his sleep. And then she's like, oh, it's this temptress. Oh my God, she's trying to tempt me. And he like, I don't even remember. He like kicks her out. But then when she tries to run away, then he drags her back. And then they almost get caught by a cop because her dad, I think, is a cop. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to let you leave because you could be pregnant with my baby and I'm not going to let you go. And so now he's forcing her to stay with him and they continue to fuck and he won't use a condom. And now their daddy kink enters the chat and just so much filling her with his cum constantly. It was daddy kink and breeding kink, and that's the whole story. So, yeah. It didn't work for me. Oh, this one was a plus size hero. That's what this one was. Yeah, because it's the big boys of Berenson Trucking. So, I gave a really poor explanation for this, but it was a 2.5-star read. And again, I did give a detailed explanation for my patrons for that one. And I don't want to rub it in to whoever picked this one or how this one came about. And I do want to try another book from May at some point. She's actually an author who's like friends with my author. And she reads a lot of like Claire's books. So I want to try some of her other ones that like aren't so kink focused like this one and see if there's one that like works for me. Because I just don't like these ones these days that are like, I've just turned 18 and like, oh, fill me up with your cum, daddy. Like, I'm past those. And again, I am not kink shaming anyone. I'm just 32 and I don't like it. At one point, I thought that was hot and I don't like it anymore. And it makes me feel weird. Like, that's just how it is. The same with the somnophilia one where it was happening there too. Like, our taste evolves and changes all the time. So, okay. now, like I said, I have 5 3-star reads to talk about, and we'll go through these ones a little bit quicker because this video is getting kind of long. And these 3-star ones are, honestly, some of these ones are the ones that are like, my 3-star reads are ones that can often be the bigger disappointments, because they're ones that, like, I really couldn't give them 3.5 to bump to a 4. You know what I mean? Because as I've said, I really try to give books 4 stars if I can. And all of these ones were arcs or a new release. Okay, one of them wasn't an arc. One was a new release, though. And I just like to give books the benefit of the doubt. So the fact that I couldn't is really disappointing to me. So one of them was The Empress by Kristen Cast. And this one mostly I was extremely excited for. Okay, I used to read Kristen, and like, was it PT Cast and Kristen when I was a kid, who did the House of Night books. And this is the Towerfall series, and it's a romantasy. And this woman falls through into this world that is like a tower. It's like based on the tarot. And in this one, they end up having to pretend to be married. And she needs to try to like get back home. And I don't know, their relationship just never made sense to me. And the kink came upon, because yeah, there's like bondage that comes out of fucking nowhere in this story. They have sex, I don't know where it came from. And then the like twist at the end, I'm like, what is happening here? So this was one that like I really wanted to love it. I am excited for like The Lovers. I don't know if you've seen the cover of The Lovers. I'm still going to keep trying with this series, but with this one I was kind of like, I'm not sure what we're doing here with this one. So didn't care for that one. Quit Me If You Can. This one was a ALC. Oh, see, I never even fully reviewed this one. That's funny. Oh, yes. So this one was one that I didn't even turn in a review because I gave it such a low rating. So I just hated both of the characters. They were so insufferable. And like, the heroine was so insufferable. They like jumped to the wrong conclusions about each other all the time. She was so childish. She didn't even act like an adult. She's supposed to be this like well-educated and grown-up woman. And like, this was a duet narration. I was really excited for it. It was narrated by C.J. Bloom and Teddy Hamilton. They're a great narration couple. And like, they're lawyers too. That made it even worse that these were lawyers and they were such like bitchy characters. And yeah, I think I read one other book by Jolie Day, and there was also, let me double check. I actually like, I'm pulling this up right here. Yes, The CEO Enemy was another one I'd read, and that one was just okay for me. So I don't think I'm going to try any more from Jolie Day, because that just like, that book was just, it was, okay. Okay, then this one I've talked about quite a few times because I've talked about it in Mafia Romance ones. But it was Tragic Empire by K.L. Mann. And this was one that I was anticipating a lot because the author wasn't sure if she was going to keep going. She tried Mafia for the first time, and that book ended up getting picked up on TikTok, so she's continuing the series. So I'm absolutely going to keep reading this author, but this second book just didn't work for me. In my opinion, she like took a different turn for the series than where I thought it was going to go, and I'm just not vibing with it. I really enjoyed book 1, but with this one, Anna Knight is in the British Mafia, and like a bunch of her family gets wiped out overnight, and so she turns to the Morettis, who are her friend from like the Mafia school, are the Morettis, and she ends up getting married into that family who has 9 different brothers, right? So Jade in the first book, Hidden Empire, she had found out that she is the youngest sister of these 9 brothers. And so she married into the Bratva, but there are a few of the mafia guys that aren't married yet who are around her age. And so she marries into this family, and they're going to help her run the family empire now that most all of them have been wiped out, right? So Cassio is who she ends up being married to, who he's actually a widower. And so he also has an infant child, and so she'd be marrying into him, and nothing would be expected of her because he already has an heir and like all those things. So yeah, I feel like this one just wasn't as fun as the first one. I know that's weird, but like Hidden Empire was a lot of fun, and it was campy in a lot of ways, especially once you got past the really dark part of the beginning. It had a mafia school going on, and it was just so interesting. And I feel like she tried to go to classic mafia with this next one now that people were paying attention. And I'm like, but people really liked what you did with the first one. So this one just didn't hit as well for me with this one. But I'm hopeful for where she'll go with another one. Okay. Okay. Then there was Thorns from the Fall. This one I've also talked about a lot, and this was the second half of a duet as well. And this book I'm conflicted on because Feathers from the Sky was book 1, I believe. And I really liked that. It was a very twisty, dark type of a vampire romance about Gwen and Roman, and I loved how things were turned on its head. I loved how dark it was. I loved the rules for the vampires, and I loved all that stuff. Sorry. My throat's just about giving out, but we're almost done. But where things went with it, and I don't want to spoil book 1 because I think there's a lot of powerful things to say about mental health and about power and about even submission and our inner demons in this duology, okay? I just don't think it worked for me, and I don't think I like the romance between these two. It's not the type that I like, and I don't think that I fully believe it. But that doesn't mean that I don't think this won't work for other people. Again, that's why this was like a 3-star for me. And I think that Jess is still a very good writer, and I like how she's grown over the years, watching her career grow. But this was very dark, even darker than the first one. There's a lot of suicidal ideation. There's even attempts in here. And there is, you know, the way those attempts are foiled are from the place of like, no one's going to kill you but me, not even yourself. There's a lot of violent sexual interactions. There's a lot of manipulation and abuse, and I don't even fully know what the plot was by the end of this. And then there was also the brutal death of a sibling that seemed superfluous to me, that I don't understand. So that's why I'm kind of like this with this one. I don't understand why it felt like she said fuck it with a few things in here. But Jess is an intense author, and yeah, like wow. So there you go. For sure, she tells a powerful story. Sorry, that was really subdued. I was just remembering some of the stuff in that one that's really intense. Okay, and then the final one to mention that is one of my least favorite, and it's actually kind of turned me off of this author, which made me sad, because her most recent one's just come out, and like I had an arc for it, and I want to read it, but I also like don't. But that was Change of Heart by Bailey Hannah. And this was one that I just, yeah, let me just pull out my review for this one and like read to you what it says, because I think that's the best way to explain why this was a 3-star one for me. Okay? And we'll round this video out. I was really looking forward to Denver and Blair's second chance. Denver was so determined to win her back over, and I was rooting for him so hard. As we see glimpses of their childhood friendship and eventual fall into love, it hurt to see how they had become separated and how they lost 14 years they could have had with each other. Denver had been through so much as a teen, and now Blair is going through something tough too. It's great to watch him be there for her in present day, even when she tries to push him away. There were some truly poignant moments. Unfortunately, I really struggled with a few aspects of their past, and also how Denver is portrayed in the present. I think he got the short end of the stick in a lot of ways. I don't blame Blair for this, as she certainly doesn't have a cakewalk as a kid, and present day is hard too. I just don't like the trope that was used to break them up as 18-year-olds. I never like when it is used this way, so that meant that this book just wasn't for me. I love a pining hero, a golden retriever who will crawl for his woman. If you love that, you will love Denver. Blair is a strong woman, and she looks out for herself in the best way she knows how. I respect her for that, even if I don't agree. I think a lot of others will. So, the issue was, something happens to Denver, and he loses someone in his life when he's a teen. And at the same time, something happens to Blair, and it causes Denver to react in a way that Blair doesn't like. And he makes kind of an ultimatum, but he also is offering everything that he can as a teen to her. And to her, she's like, no, that's not how our life's going to go. And so for him, he's like, well, then I can't do this if you're going to make that decision. Maybe you can guess what that decision is. I'm not going to go into it all in this one because we're wrapping this video up. But then she like kind of like blames him for not being there. Even though he'd also just lost someone. And then she like kind of holds that against him. And so in the present time, he's the one who has to grovel about everything. And I just don't think that's true. I think they were both kids. I think they were both doing their best. I think they both needed to not grovel to each other. I think they both needed therapy, and they need to work through it together, and they still deserve happiness together. And just, I feel like the author, just my opinion, went a little bit on her soapbox to say that the man's the one who has to crawl in that situation, and that it's his fault if he doesn't immediately act right about it, like he didn't lose anything too. And I'm just never going to feel that way. I think a man is going to feel emotions too. And to say that he doesn't is to kind of miss the point that we all feel our feelings. And I think they both needed to grieve, and then they needed time to work through it. And while I do think we get that to a little bit, I still think that Denver was made to be like, oh, he has to prove himself to her, when I think that he also, like the author should have also had to be where he's like, well, are you going to leave if I don't do everything exactly right? And he deserved that reassurance too. I'm very big on it being equal. Like if we want things equal, they should be equal. That's me. That's me over here. That's what feminism means to me, is equal in all things. Even when I want the man to throw me over my shoulder and spank me sometimes, I'll spank him back if he wants me to as well. So anyway, those are my least favorite books and DNFs this year. Let me know some books you didn't like. Again, I know that I was like a little bit harsh and mean, but in the comments, still try not to like rip anything apart, because we still want to be kind to others in case something was theirs. But maybe list 3 books that you didn't care for this year, because this will be the video that's for. So if you yourself are very soft-skinned, maybe don't go in the comments at all. That's okay. You don't have to comment on this one. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. And just know that the rest of the year, they're all going to be top 10 lists and favorites, okay? I will have my favorite fantasy, my favorite historical romance, my favorite dark romance, my favorite small town romance, and my favorite overall. There might be another one. Oh, my favorite audiobooks. Those will all be coming this year. So we will talk to you soon.